Hello, fellow toolboxers. Welcome to episode 283. We're going to have another fun episode. One of the favorites, having a discussion about updates in federal immigration with Kevin Gregg, going through a couple of cases in March that were a big deal. So that should be a lot of fun. Again, these are always big download ones, so I know you guys like it. So before we get into it, I want to mention a couple of things. I've had several people contact me just within the last few days about asking for private and personal mentorship, guidance on going solo, starting your own firm, all the building that's required. And because it all happened at once, several people asked me on a whim. I say, you know what? Let's just have a group private mentorship session. We'll start an official one, and we'll start with that and grow it. And I've been to these networking groups for lawyers before. I quit all of them because they suck and they're too they didn't do it the right way. I'm like, okay, let's do it the right way, the way I think is it is the right way, and make it more lively, actually talk real talk so we could actually make some benefit and have an open conversation instead of slap each other in the back and talk how great we are. So we want to keep it real. We already have a first session coming up Monday. This video is the second Monday of every month. I'm guessing we're going to do it in the morning, or East Coast is going to be early afternoon. This video recording is probably not going to get out in time, but for the next month, just email me. There's a fee for it, and the fees are going to keep going up, so the sooner you get in, the better. But it's going to be a game changer to really develop your practice. And so just hit me up if you're interested in that, and we could I can give you some information on what you got to do. But I think it's going to be a game changer in practice because there's going to be so much intense networking and relationships on a national level with people that are on the same wavelength as you, listeners to the podcast. So there's some sort of like connection you already have right there in what you like to listen to and what goals you have in your life. So it's a really big deal. I'm really excited about it. If you're thinking about starting your own firm, you already have your solo firm growing up. It's just the stuff I'm expertise in, but as the group grows, we're going to fine tune it because we have a lot of lawyers who listen who are like immigration lawyers within a larger firm that does PI and employment law. They have their own nuanced issues, and we can make a subgroup for that. There are those who have one or two associates who want to grow out from that. There's people who have firms, and so we can just connect the people to have a peer group to reference. And there's always a person that's expanding to the goal that they want to have, and they could give guidance from their experience too. So it's a win-win for everybody. I'm really excited about this. These ideas, just like the conference, popped up out of nowhere and quickly become successes and help out a lot of people. So I'm really happy about that. I do want to mention that we have the recording of the Iranian Immigration Challenges video. It's a CLE. You can get self-study for on California, a CLE provider with the toolbox. If you go to the circle.so community page, if you're not a member, let me know. You can access that with a PowerPoint. A lot of critical information. If you ever think about representing an Iranian in the immigration process, you got to listen to this because there's so many nuanced things that are different from all the other forms of immigration. So definitely do that. Now, if you do want to support the podcast, what you can do is like, subscribe, and leave a good review on YouTube. If you watch it on YouTube for Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, or on iTunes or Spotify, all this kind of stuff. Help get the word out. The more people listening, the more talent comes my way, and the more I could get that talent and behind the scenes information I gather, I can help get it to you, all that kind of stuff. So definitely do it. I do want to thank our wonderful sponsors, persons that are supporting the podcast this year, and their wonderful product, Cerenade. You might have heard of them, or you must have heard of them. Started with the C, a technology company that's been a leader in serving the immigration community space for 30 years. eIMMIGRATION is a software they have. You must have heard about it. One of the top softwares. It's a modern practice management software for immigration attorneys and other legal professionals to manage their cases, clients, forms, billing, and much more all in one place. Tons of different, aspects of the product they can use. I did an interview with the founder. It should be up in the Toolbox library of podcasts, where it goes into details of what differentiates them and what products they have. You'll definitely listen to it, learn a lot about it. They've been awarded a bunch of awards in 2022 at Capterra and G2, Best Value, Best Easy to Use, all this other stuff. And the wonderful thing is we have a special promo code. If you say Immigration Lawyers Toolbox 2023, you get a bunch of freebies. Initiation cost free, free first month, depending on team size, it could be even more and more. They have this other thing about, I think, sending information over. I wish I had exacts. I'm on a whim just saying them all, but I do have them. I could read them, but let me pull it up while I'm talking. But essentially, it's over $1,000 of savings. They'll tell you what it is. Just say the code, and they'll take care of you. Good people over there. Just give it a shot. You can test it out. Email them at sales@cerenade.com, again, Cerenade with a C, or you give them phone calls on their website, or visit cerenade.com/immigration and help you with that. So having said that, the following information is educational only and not intended for individual legal guidance. But Kevin's a great guy, Immigration Review Podcast, doing wonderful stuff there, really knocking out of the park with the value he's bringing in. And it makes me want to become better at the podcasting because I see how much homework he does and preparation he does beforehand before getting into it. And I'm like, I need to step up my game so I can get on Kevin Gregg level. But hey, y'all should do your own podcast too. Y'all should spend the time, gather this knowledge, and share with the community. There's more than enough room for all of us to have a podcast. As long as we're consistent, doing it right, not making it too like salesy. I say that after I run an ad, but not too salesy in the sense of just getting clients. How do we get good content that's deeper out there to make a better practice area? That's what our goal is, and that's what we're doing. So thank you, everyone, and get ready for the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode with Kevin A. Gregg, the host of Immigration Review, the ultimate podcast on practicing immigration law and immigration, federal litigation, BIA, all the stuff you need to know as a hardcore immigration attorney. He's so kind to come to our show, talking about some cool cases to recap. So, Kevin, thanks so much for coming on again. We're talking about cases in March 2023 today.
Hey, John. Love to be on every month. It's a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
How you been?
Good. Getting sick and getting better. It's been rainy in Los Angeles. It's San Diego too, right? The massive rains last month.
Yeah, it's got to be done. You've got the kids, right? So you're probably always sick.
Yeah, pretty much. Sick, no sleep and stuff. It's unbelievable how powerful the human body is that it can handle all this and keep going. 10 years ago, I wouldn't think you thought it was possible, but it's maybe stronger. I work harder now because of it. Surprisingly, the harder it is, the harder I work. So it's one of those things about life is it's not good to take. Yeah.
I think everybody should know before we get to the cases, just to call you out. I mean, you are in a sport coat, and that looks better than me. I'm just in a sweater, but I think everybody should see your Mickey Mouse undershirt under the sport coat. I feel like I'm not sure what that says about the sport coat. I think that they cancel each other out.
What happens is I work from home and I don't even leave. So I just wake up in the morning, grab a shirt, and then I go through consultations all day with whatever I had on, which would be like really worn out shirts sometimes. And I'm like, you know what? I need to take this level. I just put a sport coat. So I have all these coats here so I can just have a rotation of them for consultations and videos now. So I look a little more sophisticated when I'm doing this.
Do what you got to do, man.
Yep. So any travel coming up, or I finished any travel?
Yeah, no, I've been to Miami a bunch. I'm going to go to the FBA conference in May. Highly recommend it. I'll promote it on my podcast as well. It's a cool conference, and this year it's in Falls Church. It's like the only conference that federal government employees are allowed to go to. My understanding is that they don't get leave to do it, so they have to use their leave to do it. So that's a pretty tall ask.
Wow.
But a lot did it last year in Detroit, especially oil attorneys. And this time it's in Falls Church. So, I mean, that's literally right where everybody is. So I'm stoked.
What date is it? You know the day?
I want to say it's early May. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, it's just the go-to thing. Other than my own conferences, that's what we have in DC probably in October. This is the other Washington area conference to go to. But it's last couple of years, immigration has been taking over that bar. Everyone's been going and speaking and stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. I like it. I'm kind of on the circuit now, and it's fun. It's a good group, both AILA and FBA. So that's my next one. And maybe at the conference, we'll talk about the first case I'm talking about today, which is Kong v. United States, which is just the best name for what this case is. And I'm certainly not making fun of Mr. Kong's name. In fact, I am loving Mr. Kong's name because he has the power of a King Kong with what he pulled out with the assistance of the ACLU, in this case in the First Circuit last month. And Mr. Kong is from Cambodia, and I spent about 2 months in Cambodia between undergrad and law school. So there's certainly a special place in my heart for Cambodia. Not that has much to do with Mr. Kong, but I always like seeing a Cambodian case. You don't see him often. And you probably know about it, like with the Cambodian and Vietnamese individuals. A lot of them came during or just after as boat people, the war in Indochina. And, a lot of them, like Mr. Kong, came when they were really young, went through the school system. Not making excuses, but, a fair amount of them, probably the same as any group of people, really, but a fair amount of them got criminal records when they were young adults. They got removal orders. Kind of like the Cubans, they didn't care because the U.S. wasn't deporting people to Cambodia and Vietnam in the 70s and the 80s. We didn't even have relations with those countries. But it all started to change under the Clinton administration. We started getting relations, and there are these memos of agreements. It's still quite complicated, to be honest with you, I think, how America can deport Cambodian and Vietnamese people. But now, of course, these people like Mr. Kong are in their 50s. they're good people, they have families, like they did some stupid stuff when they were 21, and like they're like, oh my God. And it seems like this is one of the first things that the Trump administration was trying to do, as it was trying to pick up the low-hanging fruit, and not build a wall, but just to look like they were doing something powerful on immigration. They started rounding up Cambodians and Vietnamese people at the beginning of the Trump administration. A lot of it happening in New England. That's where a lot of these people live, who had outstanding removal orders. Mr. Kong appearing at his ICE appointments for years, over 15 years, I want to say. And at the last one, they're like, all right, well, you got to sit for this interview. And so he sits for the interview. Like, everything is going fine. What had happened is the United States had reached an agreement with Cambodia such that Cambodia would start accepting Cambodian people back with removal orders, but like none of them have travel documents, so they have to sit for an interview with Cambodian consulate and determine, are you Cambodian, all that stuff. No indication, Mr. Kong, and everything, everybody agrees Mr. Kong complied completely, but they didn't even tell him this was happening. He appears at his OSEP, they let him go, fine. And then like a week later or something, on his way to work, literally on his way to work, ICE just picks him up. Like clothes on his back, briefcase, whatever he's got with him, puts him in immigration prison. Doesn't even tell him why for a week. And the reason was to make sure that he sat for this interview with the Cambodian official, whatever he is. But again, Mr. Kong never said, well, I'm going to do it. He didn't even know about it. They didn't even tell him. They didn't even tell him that for a week. I think he sits in detention for a couple of months. You know, Mr. Kong, like all of these people, was released 15, 20 years prior because they couldn't deport him under Zadvidis and Damore and stuff. You know, you've got 90 days post-removal order to release, to deport or release, essentially, so long as the non-citizen complies. And if you don't, you got constitutional issues, a habeas petition can lie. So Mr. Kong was released a while ago. So why are they re-detaining him? Right before it seems like he was, I mean, it's a complicated case, but the facts are great. Right before he was about to get on a plane back to Cambodia, it appears, he got his removal proceedings reopened, and they might have even been deportation proceedings pre-IRIRA. And so they didn't have a final order anymore. So there's nothing to execute. So Mr. Kong, it looks like he's staying here. He probably married a U.S. citizen. Looks like Mr. Kong is probably going to be fine. I think he might have, who knows, whatever. That's not what this case is about. This case is about him suing ICE for wrongful detention, wrongful arrest, Federal Tort Claims Act lawsuit for money against ICE, which that's what Mr. Kong, I mean, living up to the name. Sue ICE, of course, with ACLU, New England's, I think it's ACLU, Massachusetts' help. And the facts are very interesting. This case comes down to the statute INA section 242G, which is one of the many jurisdiction stripping provisions of the INA, which says you can't sue ICE for a lot of the reasons. And one of those reasons is for, and I want to get the language perfectly right here so I can, because the language is important. You can't sue ICE if for decisions or actions arising from decisions or actions to execute removal orders, okay? So when they detained him, there was no question that ICE was trying to execute the removal order. But is detaining you so you can sit for an interview with a Cambodian official, especially when you never refused to in the first place, is that tethered sufficiently to executing a removal order such that you can't sue ICE if they do something wrong? First Circuit said it's not. First Circuit says you can sue ICE. This isn't like detaining Mr. Kong to immediately remove him. That probably couldn't sue ICE. Maybe you could, probably can't. But this is different. There's that step. And they lost the benefit of the doubt when they released him after 90 days. So Mr. Kong can sue. That's what this case all comes down to. And if Mr. Kong can sue, then you're off to the races to prove that ICE did something wrong, to depose ICE officers, to get into why they decided to detain him in the first place without telling him anything for a whole week when he's on his way to work. Continued detention is unconstitutional unless it serves certain aims. That's from the decision. And Mr. Kong has already been detained past the 90 days. So he gets detained for 50 days on his way to work without getting, for no reason other than to have him sit for this interview that, by all accounts, he would have sat for anyways. A 55-year-old man is not going to flee, by all accounts. So Mr. Kong can sue. ACLU Massachusetts makes some good law for non-citizens in the First Circuit. Federal Tort Claims Act, it's really the only tool for money that people have, non-citizen or not, against the federal government, because the Supreme Court has killed Bivens. Bivens actions don't exist anymore. The last term, the Supreme Court said that a literal CBP officer who did illegal things against albeit probably a smuggler in Washington State, but did illegal things against that person, couldn't be sued under Bivens, even though everyone agrees they're completely illegal. Because it seems like the Supreme Court won't entertain a Bivens action unless it's the exact facts that happened in Bivens, which will never happen. So anyway, this isn't about Bivens. Bivens is out. The Federal Tort Claims Act is pretty much the only thing there. Government's always going to come at you 242A, 242G. And here's a good decision to say no. And it's another good decision to have in your back pockets as you appear for your OSIPs with your terrified clients with their final orders of removal, who've been doing good things for all these years, especially if administrations change as they did and you don't know what's going to happen. At least there's something to hold ICE accountable. You can't just be detaining people necessarily because they have a final order of removal.
So what happens now? I guess sent back to district court for them to do determination of fees and stuff?
Well, not fees. I mean, so now they got to do the case. As with so many of these, right? The district court dismisses for lack of subject matter jurisdiction under 242G. Now you got to have the whole case. But, you know, who knows what will happen? But like ACLU, they're going to fight the case.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like us with the fake university, the UNNJ case, University of Northern New Jersey. We represented a class action of non-citizens who were kind of entrapped in this fake ICE university that didn't exist, that had a fake president who was tweeting fake tweets about class. The University of Northern New Jersey. And we lost at the Third Circuit in District Court, District of New Jersey, on jurisdictional grounds. And then we won by published decision at the Third Circuit just on jurisdiction. And when it got sent back, all of a sudden DOJ wanted to talk settlement. So, you know, do they really want to fight these cases if you can get around jurisdiction? Sometimes not, because sometimes things are a bit ugly when you start peeling back the onion.
I wanted to jump in for a quick second and talk about one of our wonderful new sponsors, ImmigrationEvaluationDirectory.com. Did you know research reports psychological evaluations can increase an asylum applicant's chance of approval by 78%? Psychological evaluations are hugely beneficial in hardship, cancellation, asylum, and other types of immigration cases, whether with USCIS or the Immigration Court. Connecting with qualified clinicians has never been easier thanks to the ImmigrationEvaluationDirectory.com. Free to use, you can filter the directory by location, language, case type, and more, then review profiles and reach out. The Immigration Evaluation Directory is your one-stop resource to find the best therapist to help. Explore more today at ImmigrationEvaluationDirectory.com and get the help that you need. Yeah, I'm going to get some depositions in there, get some discovery in there, and see the insanity of how they operate.
That's litigation, but you know, it costs hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to do it. That's why the only entities that can do it are things like the ACLU and the big firms that you team up with, because you know DOJ's got unlimited money. If you can get.
Why is it that it's so expensive?
Why is it so expensive?
Yeah, I was a lawyer, I should know, but why is it like that expensive for a case like that? Just reading all the documents and stuff like that, or?
I mean, how long does it take me to defend a motion, just the motion to dismiss? To draft a legitimate federal complaint takes, I don't know, 5-10 hours. Who knows?
Right, yeah. I did a motion to reopen. It got approved last week. That basically on a F1 change of status was denied. It's really stupid. We did a motion to reopen. It was fixed up, approved in about 60 days. But yeah, that took me like 6 hours to write it up, the facts, and organize it. And like, I was like, yeah.
To really get in there with the facts and to do a complaint 5-10 more hours, and then the government's going to file a motion to dismiss. So defend a motion to dismiss, 15, 20 hours, and then discovery, 100 hours. Defending and filing a motion for summary judgment, 1,000,000 hours. So I mean, I think that's why depositions. Forget about the hours, but travel and everything that goes into it. So
Yeah, when you mentioned Cambodia, I remember the Trump administration, they told a bunch of countries that we're not going to issue visas to your nationals anymore until you take your, removable, whatever that the situation is. So I guess Cambodia caved and said, okay, we want to get visas, so we'll give in. There's like 4 or 5 different countries said that too. They did this with,
I'm a bit unclear what the situation is with Cambodia and Vietnam and taking back their people, but whatever. It's just another one of the wrinkles of immigration law.
Yep. Yeah. Well, interesting stuff. Well, that's good news. Yeah. I kind of wanted to go to a trial because I want to get that discovery, see what's going on behind, peel the curtain.
Yeah.
But they'll probably stop. They'll probably give in much faster than to peel that curtain.
I have a feeling Mr. Kong has good things ahead. We'll see.
Yeah, get some money. Yeah, the American way. Make money from lawsuits.
The second case is USA v. Heard out of the 8th Circuit, and I'll be quick, but essentially it's not an immigration case per se. It's a sentence enhancement, but essentially the 8th Circuit is it's the year of the isomer, especially in the 8th Circuit. The 8th Circuit said that Minnesota MDMA, ecstasy, from at least 2011 and a bit earlier, is overbroad and indivisible vis-a-vis the federal definition of MDMA. It has an extra isomer, whatever that means, and which essentially means that conviction for anything related to MDMA, at least from Minnesota from July of that year, is not a controlled substance offense. It's overbroad and it's indivisible. I mean, and by my count, I'm not going to get into the whole isomer argument, and cocaine has isomers, MDMA has isomers, some of these other things have it, but by my count, only just in the 8th Circuit, Missouri cocaine, and these are all definitions based on certain years, but Missouri cocaine, Florida marijuana, Minnesota cocaine, Minnesota MDMA, all out in the 8th Circuit, depending on the years. And of course, there's Syed in the 11th Circuit that is also saying Florida marijuana, the same thing that the 8th said. There's the 7th Circuit with, I want to say, Indiana something or other, one of the hardcore drugs. Yeah. So like the isomer thing it's all happening after all these years. By my count, the 8th, 7th, and 11th have all adopted at least the idea that a drug itself can be overbroad vis-a-vis the federal definition of that drug. So it's not just the schedule of drugs, but it's the actual definition of drug itself. And Florida marijuana, I just did it for a case. Florida marijuana, that definition hasn't changed in forever. Like, Florida has always criminalized possession of the unsmokable portions, and the federal government has not. And so, like, don't take my word for it, but like, Florida marijuana isn't anything.
Yeah.
Ever. And if you're going to buy the isomer argument, I think a lot of doors open. Even if Minnesota MDMA is now aligned with the feds, pick your state. Like, that's 50 different states with 50 different definitions, and it's quite the world we find ourselves in now that circuits are buying the isomer argument.
Do we know who the first lawyer was who figured this argument out and started arguing it? Who won it? I
don't know. I know, and so when I talked about it on the podcast, when it all started happening like 2 years ago, an attorney reached out to me, and I was aware that actually the first court to, I think, buy the argument was the 9th Circuit a few years ago, maybe 2017 or earlier. But then it seemed like the 9th got cold feet, and they walked it back in that decision. They reheard the case again. They issued a new decision. They said, oh. And so I don't know who the attorney was on that case, but if I had to answer your question, I'd say it was whoever was the attorney on that 9th Circuit case. But I'm sure this argument's been floating around a lot longer than me, and a lot of it isn't happening in immigration anyway. It's the federal public defenders who are making these arguments a lot of the time, because it's the same analysis for criminal defense, sentence enhancement.
I see. Interesting. Well, good stuff. It's very interesting cases that popped up. It's always, you know, it's all over the place with federal. Just like we go from the first case, second case, completely different thoughts, but it's the wide-ranging world of U.S. immigration, which is anything and everything, and science and, and psychology and philosophy. Anything comes into play when you're dealing with immigration. Very interesting category to practice in.
And that's right. While we were talking, the Fifth Circuit published an immigration decision that I shall now read after I get off the Zoom with you. Who knows what it's about? That's the beauty of it.
We'll have it. Well, if it's interesting enough, we'll have it on for next month. But thanks so much for coming. Catch Kevin on Immigration Review, the Federal Bar Association panel in May. And good things coming through. What's the third thing we should say that you're up to?
You want another thing that I'm up to?
Yeah.
I'm living in San Diego. That's good enough.
You're good enough.
That's good enough for a third thing.
The San Diego branch of Kurzban, Ted Selly, and Pratt.
That's right.
And Gregg. The Gregg branch.
Yeah, no.
Well, cool, man. Good to see you again. We'll talk soon.
Thanks as always for having me on.
Got it. Thanks. Bye-bye.